The meeting is called to order. I'm glad to be back, by the way. I just got back last night from visiting my mother. And we had a great time for 4 days. Even went out on Lake Winnipesaukee on the largest boat that's on the lake, Mount Washington. What a great time.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you much. Thank you much. I didn't send out an agenda for tonight because I figured that what we probably need to concentrate on is just talking about the experience that you all had with the select board and what you envision as what's going to happen in the short term and maybe even longer term. So I'm going to turn the floor over to both of you.
Yeah, so I went out, I sent an email to everybody. We thought it went really well. In the end, they accepted the MOU, the form MOU that was there so that they could get their lawyer to go over it and make sure that it truly is non-binding. And then once they've done that, they all said they'd be willing to sign it. So at that point, once that's done, we can hand that to Matrix, and Matrix can go and find out if Perry can actually be given a grant. Once the long term then is once we find out if we can get a grant, then it's truly determining what ISP we'll use. I think one thing that Scott McPhail asked, which I liked, was why haven't the ISPs come to us? Why are we having to track them down? And I asked that same question myself in my mind beforehand, but I think we told them that we feel like Matrix would have gotten to us if we hadn't learned about them and approached them first. They have the mindset of going out to these smaller communities and trying to bring internet, high-speed internet to the areas. So overall, it was really good. John did an excellent job covering he covered all the the way that we're served currently, whether we're based on statistics, underserved, not served, unserved, all those aspects of that. And I covered just basically what the current options are for broadband for residents of Perry, and then what the proposed options are for residents of Perry.
Mm-hmm.
We felt like, I think the committee felt like there would be some leaning toward spectrum at some point. And I kind of felt that at first, but then as we talked about it a little bit more, they were truly open to any internet service provider that's going to provide the best solution for us. Obviously, they did admit, by nodding their heads when we talked about money, the town of Perry really can't afford to contribute much to this project.
Right.
So someone like Matrix that is willing to foot the bill on the other side that the grant doesn't do would be significant with making that decision as an ISP.
You have any idea how long it's going to take the lawyer to get to the one pager?
They haven't spoken to the lawyer they haven't used the lawyer for a while, but they thought, we asked that question, they thought in the next week or two they should have everything determined and signed. Well, we need to do a follow-up.
Yeah, Scotty McNichol, he stated an example where he reached out to the lawyers and they didn't respond to him in a timely fashion. That's why I was going to suggest maybe, Ray, if you can reach out to Matt or Zach and have them explain to us, what exactly do they mean as far as non-committal, just to get that in writing versus us just, saying they said that we're not committing to anything. And also the MOU that we presented was just a generic form. I think that Matrix provides one that specifically addresses the town of Perry. That's what they did with Fayette. Fayetteville, I think it is, or Fayette.
Yes,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I think it's Fayetteville.
yeah. So they'll draft out one that specifically addresses Perry, and the one that was for Fayetteville was a lot less complicated than the template that they provided as an example where you fill in the blanks.
Mhm.
Well, we
So
should have them draft that now. Then we need to take that to the select board before they start using the form letter that we gave them.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point, John.
yeah, and I think it doesn't hurt with Zach and Matt and one of them basically reach out to us and specifically in writing explain to us what they mean by there is no commitment. And like Scott said, once they sign that MOU, Matrix can do their research, and even though it seems complicated to me, they seem to have a team that all they have to do is plug in the numbers,
yeah.
and they have all the information. But I guess my concern is the MCA. I mean, it sounds like even though it's just opening up, a lot of that money is already spoken for, isn't it?
I think they're going to consider every application from what I've understood. But we did tell the select board that like timeliness is a very important thing here because we explained that this new grant time frame has just opened and it's only going to be open for a period of time.
And we also let them know that back to Scotty asking the question about why the ISPs aren't reaching out to us. I think I made the point that if we do qualify for a grant, that's going to change. They're going to want to get a piece of that action. And they're all, we might see people reaching out to us, meaning ISPs, if indeed we get a healthy grant. And it seems like maybe CCI and Matrix have been the only ones to imply that they would take up whatever contribution that Perry is required to make by the MCA.
I promised I was going to keep quiet, but here I am. Okay, the reason why ISPs aren't reaching out is because there's money everywhere. And in order to get on an ISP's radar, you need to reach out. It's due diligence and get on their radar and say, yeah, we're interested. The other thing to bear in mind is that with BEAD funding requires that every location, unserved location, it could just be Scott's house in a town, needs to be served with BEAD funding, and that the state, the Maine Connectivity Authority, needs to provide a plan on how they're going to serve every unserved location. So if this grant doesn't go through the first time, whoever you choose to partner with could then submit under BEAD. The attractive part about this round of MCA grant funding, it's not as restrictive as BEAD funding. It's not as restrictive. So even if it's not funded this time around, all those folks that you have who are underserved have to be served. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and I pointed out to the selectmen that 51% of the town is unserved, which is a good number when it comes to applying to the MCA grant.
Right.
Yeah, and I also explained to them that we would be going with the regional approach too, because that is very attractive to the MCA. And essentially Pleasant Point and Eastport love us because we're the ones that are probably the only ones that's going to be eligible for a grant, and they're willing to work with us.
Well, Matrix also pointed out that Sabayag and Eastport have the density.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was appealing to them, on a variety of levels.
Mhm.
Right,
So,
from a business model, yeah, if you can get through Perry, with the density that you mentioned, yeah, it's gonna require less infrastructure investment for them to reach out to those customers.
so it is appealing to Matrix, and as they said in the Eastport meeting, very appealing, the port, the police departments, everything else. And they appear to be very clever at leveraging various amount of funds to cover things that may not be covered by a grant. So, but seriously, when you look at, if you think about the fire hose of money that's been going on with grant funding, the ISPs don't need to go looking for you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why that we lined up all the ISPs to come and meet with you to get on their radar and say, okay, this is what we're looking at, and why you and Sabag and Eastport have been kind of working in tandem. Like, hello, we're here. We have density, we have take rate, we have, so.
Right.
Yeah, and Matrix is the only ISP that's done anything that resembles any type of market research. The density issue, they even offered a survey to present us with a survey if we wanted to reach out to the residents of Perry to see what they wanted. That was something that no one else has mentioned. The Wi-Fi 6 aspect of it, where they can actually troubleshoot someone's problems within their home, whether it be their TV or something like that. Like Spectrum, all they tell you to do is reboot your router, or that's the extent of their customer service. And these are just arguments that if we do get the grant, that I think would reinforce our thoughts about choosing Matrix as a possible ISP. And even Scotty McNichol, I think, who's a big Spectrum fan, when Scott mentioned some of the things that Matrix can provide, I think his eyes opened up a little bit. And then I pointed out to him that, it was good for Robinson that Spectrum did their thing. But the bottom line, it was all about Spectrum because, they own the infrastructure. They own some public right of way that Robinson, I think, allowed them to. They don't have any competition. So from a business perspective, that's a big capital gain investment, but also it looks good for their bottom line. And I mentioned to him in the long term, I don't know how it's going to affect Robinson because without competition, who's to say how their pricing is going to be? And John Stanhope, who's part of the board, he nodded his head. He felt that was a concern, that without competition, that could be an issue in the future.
One of the thoughts that was just kind of rumbling around my head as I was driving back has to do with I think the reality that if we sign an MOU and it goes forward, in other words, they decide that they are going to go with writing up a proposal for us, it does not prevent us from talking to other people. And the question is, do we want to take advantage of that situation and talk to our contacts at Spectrum and CCI Fidium?
I think as far as, us being open, transparent, if we don't, I could see the members of the select board asking the question, did you reach out to other ISPs after you knew you were going to get the grant? And that would be something that I would ask if I was on that board. And
Yeah.
that's where we come in and explain why we're leaning towards Matrix. And Scott had some very, very valid points. I mean, everything from, no one else has spoke about their interactions with first responders. Matrix did. Matrix talked more about community involvement than any other of the ISPs, other than maybe Axiom and GWI and Pioneer.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, when it comes right down to it, I mean, they're all equal when it comes to the actual signal that comes to the home. The real question is, and that the select board, we're going to have to present to the select board to help them make a decision, is when we make a decision which ISP we like, that's who we go to the select board. We've got to have one that's going to provide the community support and the infrastructure support. That's one thing the select board, we talked about, some of these saying that, Perry would be the owner of the infrastructure. And they're like, they wouldn't say anything. They just shook their heads. Like that we just don't have the manpower to do it. And we even talked about, maybe Perry being a job provider, and they're like, no one will work. So
Right.
they don't have people, even if Matrix talks about training people, their eyes, they don't have anybody around here that'll actually do the job. So, maybe it's an opportunity for Ray to start a second business and be an ISP himself.
I want to show you guys one more thing. This might be helpful. MCA has just recently released their maps of who served underserved. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen and show that to you, and then I can share the link. Okay. So here's Perry right here. You guys should be able to see that. All right. Here
Yep.
it is. No connections. There are 2 households, 291 unserved, 247 underserved, and 1 who served. And here's the total serviceable locations, 541, and then by percentage. So this is Perry's numbers. So I can email out this link. However, what I will say is what's important is if Matrix or whoever you decide to partner with says, okay, like we're going to put in for Connect the Ready cohort 2. If that doesn't come through under BEAD funding, these 291 locations have to be served under BEAD funding. So if you're interested, I can share that link, and then I promise, I will be quiet.
I'll take it.
That looks different from the Vetromat that you sent to me that had all of the individual homes on it.
It is different. That's their public-facing map.
Public-facing map.
Anybody in the public can access that. Vetro maps, not everybody can access that.
Right, okay. Did you
So-
send the Vetromat to everybody, though? I thought you did. No, just to me?
I don't know if it was a Vetro map. I definitely
Oh,
know.
that's what it's, I think that's what it said.
I think we got the Vectro map from Matrix.
That would make sense because they would have access.
They showed it to us in their presentation.
I don't have access to Vetro. So if you're interested, I can send you the link of how you access that if you're interested.
Please do. We
I
are
will.
interested.
Okay. I promise now. I'm going away.
You're fine. Don't worry about it.
We asked you to speak.
The numbers I presented was from, I mean, not that it really matter, but was from Kendra Joe. And I told them that there was 250 unserved, 247 underserved. I said that was about 51% of the community was unserved versus 49% that were underserved. And I still, I emphasize that still kept us in the running pretty good for a MCA grant.
Right.
So I guess from here, we just need to ask Matrix to actually draft an MOU for Perry so that we can give that to the select board.
I agree.
And
And
I
that'll,
also,
that'll make things go faster for sure.
and just in case their legal representative doesn't get back to them in a timely fashion, maybe something from Zach or Matt from Matrix that would give a better explanation about how that MOU is not binding to us, just utilizing them as an ISP after we get all the information. Because I think that's what they're looking to do. They just don't want to be locked into the Matrix.
Right. I mean, my
Well, I
understanding,
think they also don't want to be committed to $200,000 like some of these have done as well, right?
right.
Also, there was also mention about a meeting. What was the date on that meeting, Scotty? That
There's two meetings next Monday and next Tuesday. Next Monday is elections for select board members. That's at Perry Elementary, I believe. Oh, no,
That's the municipal building, isn't it?
it's the municipal building, but Tuesday evening, the 22nd, is the town meeting, and
That's the
that's
town.
at Perry Elementary in the gymnasium.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you realize that if you go to the website, you cannot find that there? I can't believe that they don't post that. Anywho,
you guys find out about the election, because I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah, I found it in the back of the book they handed out yesterday.
Oh, wow.
okay, okay, very good. Very good. I did find the map that that Elaine sent to me. Let's see if I can share it.
So Ray, the meeting that Scotty McNichol hinted around to where they wanted you to have a town vote on something? Well, that
They
was
said that
something,
was back at, he didn't hint around it. He just said that they had asked this committee on April 25th to put together a vote to see if the town actually wanted high-speed internet. And
Right.
he knew the date. He said that the vote was supposed to have happened June 14th, but nothing happened.
Right. Let me try to recreate how that happened. Remember that we had decided that we wanted to actually do an RFP,
yeah,
but we decided that we needed to have the select board's approval to do that, to go forward. So I went and I talked to them, and it's probably that particular date, April, 25th. And I went there and I think I did commit that we were going to do that we were going to go and have a separate town vote. What happened after that is that we did more research and I think determined that we didn't need or probably want to go through the RFP process because of its complexity, and we wouldn't have the capability to even analyze the data that we got. And unfortunately, and this is my responsibility, the link between those two ideas, the RFP and the town meeting, got decoupled in my brain and I forgot about it. And unfortunately, and this here is just me griping, one of the things that I have had a problem with from the very beginning is the lack of two-way communication with the select board. You know, we've tried to do our communication, and Scotty is supposed to be our liaison and all that, but I get the impression that there may not have been that much information that actually got from us, our committee, to the select board, because it would have taken, you know, one email from Scotty to say, hey, how about this particular thing? I didn't see it, I forgot it, and I don't think you all were sufficiently sensitized to kick me in the butt and say, hey, do we want to do this or not? So we didn't.
well, I mean, I wouldn't lose any sleep over it because we blamed Elaine. So that was no
I
big.
hear you.
See, how long? Let me see. 7 minutes. 7 minutes on mute. That's a new
Oh,
world
thanks,
record.
John. All right, all right.
But no, it didn't bother us because when they said there was a town vote, I didn't know what we were gonna vote on. So, I didn't pay too much attention to what was
Well,
going.
when they brought it up, I owned it for the committee, and I just said, okay, let's do a vote. How far ahead of a time? They said 2 weeks. I said, good. From today to 2 weeks from now, we'll have a vote. And then that's when Scott McNichols said, well, actually, later on, I brought it because they didn't say anything about it, but later on, I brought it up and I said, all right, so how do we do this vote? Let's get it going. And he said, actually, with all the work that y'all have done, I don't feel like we really need to do a vote to do the MOU. And so that's where they stood with that.
Yeah, I think they were confident in our due diligence, and we point blank asked them, do you support our efforts? And all three of them said, yeah. I honestly believe
Four
that.
of them.
Was there four? Oh yeah, Tina's she's a recorder. I'm not sure if she's, but yeah, Tina supports our efforts too. So they said they support our efforts, and so at least now we know that they're interested in what we're doing.
All right, okay. Well, can we circle back to this map
Yeah,
that I have up here? Okay, can you see it?
yeah. So one with all the
Turn your
Christmas
screen off.
colors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all these wonderful dots and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can zoom in. And at some point, well, at this level, we can pretty much understand that this is Perry right here. Right here. And according to the map, all those red dots that we see, those are all the unserved houses. So if this is going to be mandated for service by BEAD, then that's going to cover a significant footprint in Perry. The ones that are in green here, these guys, and these over here.
That might be Pioneer DBU.
That
Yeah,
is
you're
right.
right.
Yeah.
I gotta get down here. Okay, so here's North Perry. This is Perry right here, and Pembroke is over here. All the blue is basically Spectrum. All the red is the unserved, and there should be some green. These gray ones. Oh, it's the gray ones. This is the RDOF here, and then this area over here is the RDOF over on South Meadow. And this is a Vetro map via Main Connectivity Authority. So we have access to this. I can forward this link to you guys if you want it. I mean, it's the clearest representation of what Perry is from our point of view in the internet that I've seen. And it looks pretty accurate to me. One of the interesting things that I got here is look at how blue Pembroke is.
Yeah, and Scotty McNichols said, because I asked him about the regional approach, and I reminded him that he was supposed to get back to us after he talked to his point of contact in Pembroke, and he said Pembroke's not interested.
I can see why.
That's what he said, right, Scott? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, can you see why?
Oh yeah, because they have a heavy Spectrum presence.
They sure do. They sure do. And even Dennisville over here. I mean, there's this small section between Dennisville and Pembroke that seems to have a lot of unserved, but we have more dots than anybody.
Yeah, and I think Matrix is perfectly content with the regional approach that includes us,
Right.
Eastport and Pleasant Point. I don't think they want to. I mean, they haven't mentioned any interest in Pembroke or Dennisville or anybody else.
Right, right. Well, I think that would be more successful anyway.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right. So is there anything else that we want to talk about going forward here, at least in the short term?
I think just making sure that we know who's doing what. We said we wanted to reach out to, who's going to reach out to Matrix and ask for them to actually draft an MOU for Perry. And then I like John's idea of asking them to give us an email form. What does it mean by it's a non-commitment? And we need that done pretty quick so that we can actually get that to the select board as quickly as possible.
Okay.
I personally would like all the selectmen that were there, their emails, just to thank them for the time that they took with us Tuesday. I think just doing that would go a long way and help with that two-way communication that you were talking about,
I agree.
Ray.
I agree.
So if someone could share with me all their emails, I'll send that email and I'll just copy all of you on that email.
Okay. That's a deal.
So
Anything
who's going to
else?
reach out to Matrix?
Well, let me share with you one more thing before you make that decision. That is, I hate to do this to you, but tomorrow you'll be receiving an email from me that tenders my resignation from this committee, this august committee that I've been on now for almost a year. Remember, I went to Chicago a couple of weeks ago. I went
Yes.
to Northwestern University, and the reason I went there is because most of the long-term dose response or lifespan studies that we did at the laboratory that I worked in Albuquerque, New Mexico, produced an awful lot of biological materials. And one of the professors who I know quite well, and her name is Gail Wallachek, she managed to get the Department of Energy to pay for the transport of all this biological material to her laboratory, which is
I would like to ask you if you want me to stop recording.
oh, I don't care, but you can.
Then do you want to, I can,
I'd say stop.
Yeah. Stop the recording.
okay.